welcome to the Baby Lock YouTube channel. Today we're going to go through the Euphoria. The Euphoria delivers a variety of different stitches from cover stitch to chain stitch, allowing you to create professional looking hems and decorative effects. We're going to go through some of the features now so you can understand what they are and what they do. The Euphoria comes with the electronic air threading system. Threading the chain looper is a breeze, and it also has a nice mechanical needle threader which you are able to change quite easily between each needle. They've also introduced their famous ATD, that's the automatic thread delivery system, to the Euphoria. So that means that this feature is on the needles, but it just means that the correct amount of thread is measured and delivered to give it the perfect stitch. You do have the ability to override this, so we do have the dial here, so you can see it says 0, and that's pretty much where it lives, but you can also take that tension up to the plus sign and take that tension down if you put it on the minus. This is a dial that I have actually never tweaked, only for demonstration purposes. The automatic tension works that well that I have had no need to use that. This is your chain loop tension dial. As you can see, it varies from 0 to 5. I have to say, it lives on about 2.5 for me. For most fabrics, this works absolutely perfect. So while this isn't automatic tension like the needles have, it works like it's automatic. It has automatic tension. Occasionally, I might take that down and take the tension down to 1, depending if I'm working on what fabric I'm working with, whether it's a lot of thick layers. So I might loosen that tension off, and if I need it slightly tighter, 4. But generally, it lives on 2.5, and that is where it stays. On the side here, we have our differential feed. So this lever here controls your front set of feed dogs. You have 2 sets of feed dogs on the Baby Lock machines. The back one always stays the same. This lever here controls the front feed dog and allows you to control the feed of your fabric. The Euphoria also comes with the drop feed system. So if we put our presser foot all the way up, these feed dogs drop down, and this will be with the knee lift as well, depending on which one you're using. So that means that as they drop down, you are then able to slide thicker layers of fabric underneath there more easily. On the left hand side here, we have your thread cutter and the presser foot pressure dial. The presser foot has been factory set and rarely needs adjustment. I find this especially true because of the automatic tension. However, if you are needing to adjust it, then simply turn the dial down to decrease and then up to increase the pressure. For those of you that are familiar with Baby Lock machines, there are usually a few more dials down the bottom here, but there is only one, and this is the stitch length dial. The stitch length dial ranges from a length of 1 millimeter to 4 millimeters, with 3 millimeters being the optimal length for most fabrics. At this length, it is roughly producing 10 stitches per inch. For lightweight fabrics, you might prefer a shorter stitch length and take that down to 2. And for heavier fabrics or lots of layers, you might extend that up to 4 millimeters. So before we go on to threading, we're just going to have a quick look at the threading guidelines here that are to the right of your needle plate. There are marks here to help with hemming. The distance between the first mark and the C1 needle is 1 inch. The distance between the second needle, so that's your C2, and the first line is 7/8 of an inch, and the C3 needle and the first line is 3/4 of an inch. This is a great little guide to help you with hemming, but alternatively, you could use one of the Baby Lock fabric guides, and thanks to its adjustable edge, this guide allows you to position edges and hems precisely. So now we're going to move on to threading. So we need to pull the door down and slide this table to the right and pull it down. The Euphoria must be locked into threading position when threading the loopers and using the needle threader. So we're going to place the lever into threading mode, and then we're going to turn the wheel towards us to lock the tubes into place. You can thread your machine in any order that you want to. I always work right to left, so I'm going to start with the chain looper. So make sure that your telescopic thread guide is all the way up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to bring our thread up, and it comes up and sits in there. And then for the chain looper, it goes from front to back. And then I just let a long piece of thread just drop down. And then it tucks behind the elbow, as we call it, and then comes up over the shoulder and into the tension disc there, and then just tucks behind this hook. We can then put 1/2 inch into the threading port and press the button. It then collects in this tray on the left hand side when you open the door here. Now you can leave it sat in the thread. I just make sure that it's about 4 or 5 inches, and then you can leave that in the tray and close the door on it. So now we're going to thread our needles up. So we'll start with the C3 and work our way to the left. So again, it comes up and sits in the telescopic antennae. It then clips into the top here. So this is your pre-tension thread guide back here. This can come off, and what it is it there are 2 springs in there that will stop any knots forming. And then it just comes forward and sits in the thread channel, always making sure that we are threading with our presser foot up. And then it comes across, and very much like your sewing machine, up, over and down. And then we have our slider here to dictate which needle we are threading. So I'm going to move that over to the C3 position and then pull it down. And there you go. You can see that the little needle threader has now come to the eye of the needle. So I'm just going to place that thread between the jaws there. You will feel that thread click into place. And then all I need to do is just carefully just push that back up, and then it has pulled my needle thread through. And then I'll just tuck that thread behind there and then move on. And then we'll do C1 and C2. And that is our machine now set up for a triple cover stitch. So I'm just going to put it back up to the serging mode, and then I'll just take that table back up and slide it to the left and push my door back. We're going to start with the triple cover stitch. So this stitch is 6mm wide and uses all 3 needles. It's quite commonly used for top stitching, hemming and elastic application. It's also a lovely stitch that can be used decoratively with the loop side as a feature. So this is commonly seen on active wear. So we're going to put a variety of different fabrics through. So this is just a true testament as to how well that automatic tension works. So we'll start with some fleece, and always starting with the fabric underneath the needles. Here we go. So you can see there that it's gone through thick fleece, no worries. And then we've moved on to some denim, organza, and then onto some lycra. So the baby locks will chain off, but they are only designed to chain off at a maximum stitch length of 4. So with the stitch length at maximum, I'm just going to show you how well those feed dogs work, and I'm going to put my differential feed all the way up to 2. And then just start And there you can see it's a beautiful gather. This is just another example of the decorative effects that you can achieve with a simple change of settings using your Euphoria. We're now going to take the middle needle out and do a wide cover stitch. So I'll lift that presser foot up, and then to release my threads, I'm going to turn my wheel backwards and just gently pull on that chain there. And you can see there, it's released the chain and freed my threads up. Now take my Allen key and then and I always leave it threaded when I am taking a needle out, because I am a bit of a klutz, and I will drop it into the machine. There is a little tray down here that it will collect in, a nice little magnetic tray on the Euphoria, but I leave it threaded just so that I can then keep hold of it a bit more easily. And then I can just pull it off and then pop it on the magnetic tray that we have on the side there, and then remove that thread. So like the triple cover stitch, the wide cover stitch is 6 millimeters wide, and it is predominantly used for hemming in industry. More so on heavier knit fabrics, but it can be used on both all knit fabrics and woven fabrics. So we're going to take you through the technique, which is cover stitch in the round, and to do this I'm actually going to take this foot off and we're going to use the open toe foot. So we've now got the foot on, the threads are over the foot. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn that wheel towards me, one rotation, and then I'm just going to pick those threads up and pull them underneath. Now it will sort itself out, but what I find is that they're just out of the way if I start with them underneath the foot, but it doesn't matter. Then I'm just going to slide the fabric underneath and then press the foot down. When I'm starting doing a t-shirt hem or something in the round, what I tend to do is I start near one of the seams, the side seams. Make sure that your settings are where they need to be. So we've got our differential feed on N, and I put my stitch length to 3. So we're now approaching our original starting threads. So all I'm going to do is pull them either side and then just slowly go up. And as I get closer, I can now see quite clearly my starting stitching lines and the red lines on the foot. And I'm just going to use those as a guide. And then I'll be able to see this big open space on the toe of the foot. I can just go through and make sure that those lines are accurately lined up. So I've gone over those starting stitch lines by about 1 inch. I leave the needles in the fabric, lift the presser foot up to free the tension, pull the thread forwards. I then put my presser foot back down, turn the wheel towards you, not backwards, and put the needles at the highest height. Then that allows me to get my tool underneath and then just pull the thread from underneath the needles. And then I can then snip that loop there and then press the foot up. And then as I pull that away, those needle lines, those top needles will just pull through to the bottom side of the fabric, and all we have to do is snip our chain looper. And you can see there, with the use of the open toe foot, I've been able to line up those lines perfectly. These starting needle thread lines, you can snip them if you want to, or you can push them back through to the underside and tie them off. So we're now going to move the C3 needle over to the C2 position, and this will give us a narrow cover stitch. This can be achieved using the C2 and C3 needle as well, but I am going to demonstrate the professional finish that you can get using a bias binder. So I like to set it up with using the C1 and the C2 needle. So we are going to use the 32mm single fold bias binder. Now the strip that I cut for that, I always cut a little bit wider when I'm using jersey fabric, and I chop that to 35mm. So we're now set up for a narrow cover stitch, and we're just going to put some jersey through there, a lighter weight jersey, just so that you can see the difference. With us using the narrow cover stitch and the C1 and C2 needle, I'm now going to show you one of our bias binders. Now when I'm working with jersey fabric, I like to work with the single fold 32mm bias binder. You can see here it's got the rake on the side, so this is for your tension, and it helps to support the binding as it's going through. You've got the ability as well to adjust the screws here, which will then adjust these arms here. So if I turn that round, you can see these arms here. This binder out of the box, I don't touch. I think it works perfectly. All I do is this top arm here, this one. I line it up with the toe of the foot and then adjust when it's fastened on. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to feed my binding through and pull about 2 inches out of the back. With the wrong side of your fabric facing you, I just wind it on, and then it slots in there, and then I just use my tweezers or my tool just to poke it through. And then ease it through out of this side here. Just grab my tweezers to pull it a bit more. And then all I do is just pull it out of the back there, and you can see the top edge is folding and the bottom edge is staying flat. So now I'm going to fasten it onto the machine. So I'm going to lift my presser foot up and release the threads from the stitch fingers. So again, I'll just lift my presser foot up, hold on to the chain, turn the wheel backwards just to free those threads up, and then just take my thread cutter and cut that off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lie that tail underneath the foot and then put my press foot down just to clamp it in place. And then I'm going to use my screws to position and hold my binder in place. So as I said before, now lift that press foot up. I line this arm up with the toe of the foot here. This is my starting position. I can then tweak it. What I found with the Euphoria is that I might need to just nudge it slightly to the right so it is sitting more with the left needle marking. And then I'll just tighten those screws up so that the binder cannot move then. And then you can see if I need to put more tension on, I can just pull this rake a little bit further forward and it will give me a bit more tension. So press the foot down, just let it feed through slightly. And then what we do is we take our neckline and with our right side facing up, we sandwich this between the layers and then we butt it up against this bit here and just guide it through. And And you can see there we've got our perfectly sitting binding, and then if I turn that over, you can see that by lining it up with the toe of the foot or slightly to the right, that I managed to encase that raw edge completely in the side, inside the stitches. We're going to finish with the chain stitch, so I am going to just take the C1 needle out. Now you can do the chain stitch with any of the 3 needles. I'm just leaving the middle one in, and then I will remove that thread. So now we are just working with 2 threads. We have our chain looper and our needle thread. The chain stitch looks like a nice straight stitch on top, while the underneath there is a chain formed. The stitch has more stretch than a conventional lock stitch that you would get from your sewing machine, and it's also a great stitch for basting as it unravels very easily. So we're just going to start with our fabric underneath the foot again, and then you can see we have our straight stitch on top, and then the chain has formed on the underneath. Now to unpick that, if you were using it for basting, you would unpick from the end that has come off the machine last. So to unpick our stitches, what I'm going to do is I am just going to cut that chain off, turn it over, and then what I need to do is I just need to free the chain loop thread up from the needle thread. So then I am just able to pull that out nice and easily. And that is how simple it is to unpick your chain stitch, and why it is so great for basting. The chain stitch works particularly well with a decorative thread in the chain looper, and here I'm using our new stitch guide to help me get some straight lines. So this is perfect for quilting, or if you're doing anything that requires you to have some even straight lines. You can see we've got our two new perfectly straight lines. So as you can see, there are many more things that you can do with the Euphoria. I hope this tutorial has given you some insight as to what can be achieved using this extraordinary machine. Please like and subscribe to the Babylock YouTube channel, and look out for more videos on all of the range of machines and accessories we have available.